You know, this guy wasn't the most talented quarterback of the modern era, but boys, oh boys, tough as nails. What do you call a general of the gridiron in every shape or form. What he did in Miami, Cleveland, and later on with the Cowboys has earned nothing but respect. He's had some up and downs in his personal life and his career, but for me, again, pound for pound, one of the most respected athletes in NFL history, Bernie Kosar. Now, Bernard Joseph Kosar, born Youngstown, Ohio, November 25th, 1963, was a quarterback in the NCAA for Miami and the NFL for a number of years. He played his college football for the Hurricanes, leading the squad to a very, very heralded national championship in '83. He subsequently played in the NFL for the Cleveland Browns from '85 to '93, the Cowboys in '93, and Miami Dolphins from '94 to '96. He was a backup quarterback on the '93 Cowboys team that bet the Bills to win Super Bowl 28. Now, born in Youngstown and raised in suburban Boardman Township, he is Hungarian. He attended Boardman High School, where he earned Parade Magazine's All-American honors in '81 as a senior and was the Ohio Division I Player of the Year. He also gained recognition as a baseball player, especially for his pitching skills. Now, rumor has it the hometown Cleveland Indians were scouting him, and of course, didn't decide to go into baseball. Now, recruited by University of Miami head football coach Howard Schellenberger, and Kosar committed to University of Miami, which ran a passing-oriented offense and was beginning to emerge as one of the top football programs in the nation. Kosar proved instrumental in establishing the University of Miami nickname Quarterback U in reference to a number of top QBs the program produced. After being redshirted in '82, Kosar started all 12 games as a freshman in '83. In the '83 season, he completed 61.5% of his passes for 2,328 yards and 15 TDs, leading the Hurricanes to 11-1 regular season record and a berth in the Orange Bowl against top-ranked Nebraska. Now, that's the greatest game I ever watched on television, and Nebraska entered the contest 22 straight victories. In the game, which came down to a loss, Nebraska 2-point conversion late, he passed for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he defeated the Cornhuskers 31-30 for Miami's first national title, and the rest is history. Now, Kosar earned Orange Bowl MVPs for his performance. Now, in '84, he set Hurricane records, season records for 3,642 yards and 25 TDs, was the second team All-American, and finished fourth in the Heisman. Kosar's career completion percentage at 62.3 is still a Hurricanes record. Now, he threw for 447 yards and 2 touchdowns, completing 25 of 38 attempts, in the now famous Hurricanes 47-45 loss on November 23rd, '84 to Boston College when Flutie threw his famous Hail Flutie touchdown pass. Early in the same year, Kosar watched as replacing quarterback Frank Reich, later with the Bills and later a Super Bowl finalist, of University of Maryland, launched what was then the biggest comeback in football history, college football history. Reich led the Maryland Terrapins back from first half deficit of 31-0 and won 42-40. The game had passed has been described as among the most memorable moments in sports history. His final collegiate game was the '85 Fiesta Bowl against UCLA, which the Hurricanes lost 39-37. In that game, Kosar completed 31 of 44 passes for 294 yards, 2 TDs, and 1 interception. Now, he graduated from University of Miami School of Business with a double major in finance and economics. He took 18 credit hours during the spring of '85 and an additional 6 during the summer to graduate early. Kosar was eventually interviewed about his time at University of Miami for the documentary The U, which premiered December 12, '09 on ESPN. However, in '85, Kosar was a highly sought NFL prospect, described as having an elite football IQ and being able to decipher a defense quicker than his coaches. But his route from the University of Miami to the NFL would prove to be filled with widespread controversy and the use of highly unconventional transactional and draft NFL tactics. In a March 1485 press conference in Miami, Kosar announced that he was foregoing his final 2 years of college eligibility at Miami to enter the NFL. Kosar grew up a Cleveland Browns fan and also announced in the press conference that he would like to play for the Browns in his native Ohio. NFL rules at the time only permitted college seniors and college graduates to enter the 85 NFL draft, and Kosar was still a University of Miami underclassman in March of 85. To establish eligibility, Kosar announced he had arranged an expedited academic plan with 16 credits in spring 85, an additional 6 in the summer that would permit him to graduate from Miami in time to meet the draft eligibility requirements. In June 85, the University of Miami notified the NFL that Kosar had met the course requirements to graduate. Now, seeking to obtain Kosar in the draft, the Vikings on April 9, 85 traded with the Houston Oilers to obtain the top draft selection and announced their intention to draft Kosar. Meanwhile, also seeking to draft Kosar, the Browns quietly traded their first-round NFL draft selections for 85 and 86, their third rounder in 85 and sixth selection in 86, with the Bills for the Bills' first-round pick in the 85 supplemental draft, which paved the way for the Browns to select Kosar in the 85 supplemental draft if Kosar entered it. The NFL deadline for the submission of formal eligibility documents for the 85 draft was April 15, 85, and the Vikings learned that Kosar had not met the deadline. "I'm as confused as you are," Vikings' longtime head coach Bud Grant said at the time about Kosar. "We put our bid on the line. It's up to the commissioner whether you need a verbal or a written commitment from the man. He dropped out of football, hired an agent, and declared he was going in the draft. The only thing he didn't do was sign the letter." Teams soon learned of the Browns' highly unorthodox trade with the Bills to obtain Kosar in the supplemental draft. Several teams asked then NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle to prevent the unusual trade between the Browns and the Bills. Rozelle, in turn, announced that he was giving Kosar until April 23rd to submit eligibility documents for either the traditional or supplemental draft. On April 25th, Kosar held a press conference announcing his intention to skip the traditional draft and enter the supplemental draft, where he expected to be selected with the Browns' first selection. The Houston Oilers, also seeking to draft Kosar in the traditional draft, threatened to sue to stop the entire draft unless Kosar was in it. Houston also appealed to the Vikings to join the suit. Kosar's agent, in turn, threatened to sue the NFL if Kosar was obligated to enter the traditional draft. Now, when the Vikings refused to join the suit, the Oilers dropped it. Kosar submitted documentation announcing his eligibility and participation in the 85 supplemental draft. And on July 3rd, 85, the Browns used their first selection in the supplemental draft that year to select Kosar, offering him a 5-year contract. Now, the Browns intended for Kosar to serve as Gary Danielson's backup, who was over from the Lions in Kosar's rookie season, but Danielson injured his shoulder in the 5th week. Kosar completed half his passes in the team's run-oriented offense that year, with the 2 Pruitts, of course, and the team squeaked into the playoffs with an 8-8 record, losing Miami in the divisional playdowns. Danielson was injured again in the 86 preseason. By the time Danielson healed and returned, however, Kosar had established himself as the Browns' permanent starter. In a new passing-focused offense, Kosar threw for 3,854 yards and finished second in the league with 310 completions, and the Browns took the top seed in the AFC with a 12-4 record. In the divisional playoffs against the Jets, Kosar threw for the then playoff record 489 yards, a record since eclipsed by Tom Brady in Super Bowl 52, and leading the Browns to a 23-20 comeback victory in double overtime. But the following week, John Elway's 98-yard drive in the AFC title game kept the Browns out of the Super Bowl. Now, Kosar's most productive year statistically was 87. In a strike-shortened season, he completed 62% of his passes for more than 3,000 yards and 22 TDs, and led the AFC in quarterback rating. In an AFC Championship rematch against Elway's Broncos, Kosar threw for 356 yards and 3 touchdowns in a tough 38-33 loss. Now, Kosar spent most of the 88 season sidelined with injuries, but came back to throw for 3,500 yards in 89. That year, the Browns advanced to the AFC title game for the 3rd time in 4 years, losing again to the Broncos in Denver. Now, Kosar eventually set a record for consecutive playoff games with at least 3 touchdown passes, having thrown 3 scores against Bone Indy in Denver in 87 and 3 against Buffalo in 89. Now, Kosar's later years in Cleveland were dampened by injuries and dwindling support around him. In 1990, Kosar threw a career-high 15 INTs as the Browns went 3-13. He also started the 90 season by setting an NFL record for consecutive pass attempts without an interception with 286. The following year, Kosar came back to throw for 3,487 yards and 18 TDs to only 9 interceptions. In 90 and 91, Kosar set league records by throwing 308 consecutive passes without an interception, which stood as an AFC league record for almost 2 decades. Now, in 91, the Browns hired Bill Belichick as head coach. Following a 92 season that saw Kosar miss 9 games with a broken ankle and go 2-5 in the games that he started, Belichick signed quarterback Vinny Testaverde, also a former University of Miami quarterback, prior to the 93 season. After falling from 3-0 to 3-2 in the 93 season, Belichick benched Kosar in favor of Testaverde. An injury, Testaverde returned Kosar to the field. After a 29-14 loss to Denver in Week 10, the Browns released Kosar. Now, according to a poll of Browns fans in 2019, Kosar was considered the most beloved Browns player in franchise history. Now, when the Dallas Cowboys suffered an injury to starter Troy Aikman on the same weekend, after Kosar's release, the Cowboys promptly signed Kosar to a 1-year, $1 million contract as a backup for rookie Jason Garrett, who substituted in one of Aikman's injured games. After an inefficient first 9 minutes of a game against Phoenix with only 2 completions, Garrett was replaced by Kosar, who finished the rest of the game and started the next contest for his only 2 meaningful game action in the regular season. During the NFC title game against the 49ers, Aikman was knocked out of the game with a concussion in the third quarter, with Kosar finishing the contest, completing 5 of 9 pass attempts for 83 yards and a TD. He earned his only Super Bowl title as a backup in Super Bowl 38, entering the contest in the final play and knelt down to close the victory. Now, when Kosar spent the final 2 years of the NFL career with the Dolphins as a backup to Dan Marino, Kosar brought to the Dolphins a trick play that helped the Dolphins top the New York Jets in a crucial 94 game. With the clock winding down and the Dolphins trailing by 3, Marino, inspired by Kosar, pretended to spike the ball to stop the clock. He then threw the winning touchdown pass to Mark Ingram. Now, Kosar finished his 12-season career with nearly 2,000 completions in 3,365 attempts for 23,000 yards, 124 TDs, 87 interceptions, and 5 rushing TDs. In November 91, Kosar also set the NFL record for most consecutive completed passes without an interception, a record that stood until Tom Brady broke it on Boxing Day 2010. Now, his seasonal record from 85 to 95, 4-6, 12-4, 8-4, 6-3, 9-6-1, 3-10, 6-10, 2-5, 3-3, 0-1 with Dallas, no record Miami 94, 0-2 Miami 95, and no record in 96. Again, 53, 54, and 1. Playoffs, he won 3 consecutive seasons with 1 playoff victory, but again, 3-4 overall record. Now, since his retirement in 96, Kosar has been involved in several sports and business-related ventures. He hosted a Nestle Bernie Kosar Charity Classic at Tanglewood National Golf Club in Bainbridge Township, Ohio, throughout the 1990s. Now, in 2001, Kosar purchased the Florida Panthers and National Hockey League team, along with pharmaceutical businessman Alan Cohen. In 2007, there was some speculation that Kosar might take the head coaching job at Miami, his alma mater, and where he holds a seat on the university's board of regents. Kosar acknowledged that he had considered taking the job before it was ultimately offered to Randy Shannon. Now, he also purchased a minority share in the Arena Football League's LA Gladiators in 2007 and announced that the team would move to Cleveland and play again under the name Cleveland Gladiators. On October 16, 2007, he was named team president and CEO. The Gladiators finished the 2008 regular season 97, earning them a playoff berth. Now, in 2009, he was hired as consultant for the Browns. In September 22, Kosar launched the Bernie Kosar Show with local sports media company Big Play, a sports podcast with Cleveland Browns cornerback Hanford Dixon interviewing athletes and discussing the Cleveland Browns past, present, and future. Now, following the 2009 recession, Kosar and his businesses declared bankruptcy on June 19, 2009, later revealing now $9.2 million in assets and $18.9 million in debt. Kosar's initial bankruptcy filing was a Chapter 11 restructuring, but the U.S. Bankruptcy Court in Fort Lauderdale on January 6, 2010, ordered the proceeding be changed to a Chapter 7 liquidation. Under restructuring, Kosar's filings proposed protecting his NFL pension, though it was unclear if this will be permitted under Chapter 7 proceedings. Now, in July 2010, it was reported that Kosar was verge of losing property in Diego County, Ohio, for unpaid back taxes totaling nearly $175,000. In September 2010, the trustees of Auburn Township indicated was considering purchasing the land in foreclosure. Now, Kosar has also lent his name to Kosar's wood-fired grill at the Hard Rock Casino in Northfield Park in Northfield, Ohio, which opened in December 2013. Now, Kosar is also teamed with Ohio grocery store Heinen's for a motivational and wellness seminar series based on Kosar's popular autobiography, Luring the Scramble, which he published in 2017. Now, there's also talk as well about his impact in CTE studies. He suffered many concussions through the years. There's been many times he spoke on that as well. So he's a leader in an investigation in that category for what he called the 1980s football players, where concussions and on-field hard play was more common. Now, on June 22nd, 1990, he married Babette Faré, whom he met at the University of Miami as a student. He had 4 children. Faré filed for divorce in 2005, alleging that Kosar had engaged in reckless spending, bad investments, and drug use. The divorce was finalized in 2007. Kosar also dated Tammy Longerberger of the Longerberger Company from 2009 to 13. Now, Kosar is featured quite a bit in popular culture, and he was also featured in Broke, a 2012 ESPN 30 for 30 documentary about the financial problems common among high-earning athletes. According to one review of Broke, Kosar's story proved to be the true heart of the film, with Kosar's upfront discussion of family problems and bad business decisions. Now, Kosar continues to deal with lingering health issues, again, like I mentioned, related to several concussions he sustained during his playing career, and has enrolled in a treatment program to alleviate his symptoms. Kosar says the experimental treatment has been helpful and has promoted to other players who may have developed symptoms related to CTE. For over a decade, Kosar's symptoms have included insomnia, slurred speech, and a ringing in his head. Now, on September 29, 2013, Kosar was unfortunately pulled over by law enforcement in Solon, Ohio for speeding and was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence. He later pled no contest to a lesser charge of reckless operation and received a $750 fine and a suspended jail sentence. Now, Kosar's political views are at this writing undetermined, but he was invited to the 2016 Republican National Convention and spoke positively of host state Ohio and host city Cleveland in the context of the convention being held there. In 2022, he appeared in advertising for Tim Ryan, the Democratic nominee for the U.S. Senate in Ohio. Now, in the 2010 novel I Am Number 4 by Phineas Lorre, protagonist John Smith finds an abandoned beagle named Bernie Kosar, which becomes Smith's pet. In the 2010 film adaptation, a poster of Kosar is shown in Smith's new bedroom. And again, the book Luring the Scramble, co-written with Craig Stout on Cleveland Landmarks Press, if you can find it, it's quite an interesting book. It talks a little bit of the inside information about the Dolphins, the Browns, Miami, Dallas. But don't forget, this was the original Cleveland Browns, not the Cleveland Browns that's out now. This is the Cleveland Browns before they had moved. So, ladies and gentlemen, Bernie Kosar, in my basic opinion, what you see is what you get. He's a very honest guy. He's made his mistakes, but for us of a certain age, and he's around my age, he's a dynamite individual. If it wouldn't have been John Elway, he would have been in the Super Bowl before and won one with Dallas. Now, should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame or the Football Hall of Fame, borderline. He's won a Super Bowl, but like I said, the lack of success to get the Browns to the Super Bowl has hurt him. If he would have won a Super Bowl with the Browns, it might be an argument for that. But in the history of Cleveland Browns, okay, Jim Brown and Bernie Kosar are up there in recognition. And like I said, Bernie Kosar, tough as nails. I've seen him take hits that even a human being should not be able to. But that cold January night when I watched him play Nebraska, that great game, and he's won a lot. He's lost some more key games than he's won. But everybody loves Bernie Kosar, warts and all. He's, like I said, he's made some bad decisions, but everybody's human. And Bernie Kosar probably one of the most human athletes you'll find out there. And him owning the Florida Panthers, how many pro football quarterbacks have owned an NHL franchise? That alone puts him in sports history. Thanks for listening. Give me a like, comment, subscribe, or share, and happy holidays. Bye.